Hello gamers and welcome to Game Warp. I'm Elwood.
I'm Kim.
And this is our review of Maize. Maize is an independent puzzle game / walking simulator in which you find yourself being essentially jumped by a bunch of sentient corn and left in a field, and basically struggling to figure out what's going on as you discover that this field is not only home to sentient corn, but there's also a mysterious science facility operated underneath, operated by the two idiot scientists Bob and Ted, who perhaps may have misread a government mandate. Maize is a game which was first released on Steam and has since been ported to both PS4 and Xbox One. Carrying across with it a very unique sense of humour, very much in the vein of Monty Python, although from playing the opening level of this game you would think that this game is going to go in a very different track, and at the same time bringing back fond memories of the likes of Myst and Riven. But obviously, Kim, this is a game which I'm going to say is, when I sort of think of games and words sort of categorize them, I would say this is a game sort of in your sort of field. I mean, we're both fans of the likes of Myst and Riven. I mean, when we first started doing this project, I mean, that was the sort of game that brought us together. That sort of joint love for this game, and I can see, looking at this, a lot of similarities in the way that this game is structured, while at the same time you can draw comparisons to the likes of Gone Home as well. But I mean, what did you obviously think of Maize?
I think it's really hard to say, because Maize is, it's intriguing because when you first start, you wonder what you're doing, you wonder what's going on, because you're just dumped into this giant corn maze, and then you end up at a house, and you have to just tosses you into, finding items, and, getting, and, solving puzzles and then eventually you realize you have to open this big red door, and in some ways, while I think building from what you were talking about, that first part being very different from the rest of the game, I feel like when I think back to it, the first part was kind of a downfall, because it felt like it was so tricky compared to the rest of the game. There were so many pieces laid all over the place, and it was just at certain points, it was so hard to figure out what had to go next. I don't know if you felt the same way.
Yeah, certainly with the first section of the game, it felt like a very much different experience to the levels which follow. In fact, it was pretty actually unnerving. The soundtrack being very similar. If anyone who's seen Twin Peaks will find that this soundtrack is very similar, and it's kind of unnerving as you're wandering around this cornfield. You've got an abandoned farmhouse, and everything's very sort of run down, and you've got no sort of clue what's going on. So it's got very much the feel of that you're in a horror game, and that something's going to jump out and get you.
Yeah.
And then we obviously get to the end of the first level, which is all essentially about getting into the science facility and finding these items that will open the big door. And we had this first encounter with the sentient corn, and I thought, oh, this is going to be the moment, this is one of the big first shock moments. But no, instead we go into this very bizarre comedic routine as they argue amongst themselves about what sort of riddle to pose you. And it then pretty much sets the tone for the rest of the game that you're going to play through, as the game just dissolves into funny post-it notes, interesting little items to pick up, and a foul-mouthed Russian teddy bear. This game is certainly unique in the direction it takes. At the same time, I think that it also feels that it's funnier than it actually is. But it's a game that I can certainly see having its fans just on these sort of quirky factors alone. I mean, there's people obviously out there who love the likes of Gone Home, a game where essentially you just wander around an empty house for hours on end just looking for clues.
But I have to argue because Gone Home is one of my favorite games, mostly because it's a very fantastic experience. The way they build it, the mystery, trying to, you're a person that comes home from holiday, from a university or something, and you come back to an empty house, and you need to figure out like where everyone, not only where everyone is, but you kind of know where your parents are, but you're trying to figure out where is your sister and what happened to her. And during this whole thing, you're getting these messages scattered around. And I mean, we're not talking about Gone Home right now, but the feeling is completely different. In that sense that there's a lot more mystery, whereas like Maze dissolves into this like humor trip, you know, like with puzzles, and you need to like pretty much how I felt, I think, when I entered into Maze, when we started picking up items and stuff like that. I had a feeling I was playing Darkest Detective, the Dark Side Detective that we had reviewed earlier, where it was like a point and click adventure where you walked into a room and you picked up everything you needed from every single room and then figure out where everything goes, because this game makes it really easy for you in the sense that, you know, when you need to do something, they already have an outline of what needs to be done, and your items that you can pick up are also outlined. So they make it as easy as you can, and you can't complain about it. You know, everything is linear. Things will open when you found something or you've unlocked something, and then even the thing says it on the screen. A new path has opened for you, you know? And, you know, and it feels like that's the thing, is that they don't want you to be frustrated about the puzzles itself. While they are a little challenging, they're never so hard that you can't get over. Whereas it's just really the concept of like, oh, maybe you missed an item, you know, like for me, a key in an outhouse in the back, you know, then that would, or like a nail in an outhouse in the back. Okay, well, that was my fault because I didn't look carefully.
Yeah, certainly I find that as the game goes on, the puzzles certainly got easier. I mean, if you can really call them puzzles, it's essentially the whole game is one big fetch quest. As you said, you find items and you find out where to slot said items in. The fact that everything's sort of outlined for you does kind of feel like the game is treating you with kid gloves throughout, which is a little frustrating, in that you think that the only really sort of challenge is just to find all the pieces and then really sort of essentially find where to put said pieces. There are a couple of items which are a little more harder to find, and certainly the requirements to obviously put pieces together, like broken gears or to smash Fabergé eggs, those sort of moments were a little more difficult. The thing I was certainly most happy about would be as I said, our talking teddy bear sidekick that you build in the lab, Vladdy, who really brings a lot to the game, because until you obviously construct him, you're wandering around by yourself. There's no dialogue. You don't speak as a character. So you just basically wander around with your own thoughts as you play this game, and then you obviously have Vladdy, who you can use as your little assistant. He can get into vents, he can fix things for you. All the time he's just constantly insulting you in a thick Russian accent and having to go at you because all you do is pick up garbage. Everything's rubbish. It's just absolutely fantastic, this character, and he just squeaks as he walks along.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Vladdy is. I think it's really nice because not only is Vladdy really entertaining to watch, and he's also like that opposite effect. You know, it's like they're building off of like a character like Ted and making him into a Russian teddy bear who's like just being something about the fascination of people doing games with like naughty teddy bears or bad teddy bears. It's really weird. I guess it's just the idea of changing an innocent childhood image into something that's more foul-mouthed and that sort of thing. But I mean, Vladdy was great, and I even think like all the other characters, even, you know, the main three corn stalks that we talked, the sentient corn that we talked to, I think it was Jim, Bill, and something else. I can't remember his name. And these three are, you know, they're really idiotic. And you wonder, you know, about, you know, like they're saying things and they're pondering life things for them that seems important. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, you know what? Nap time, you know, and then they head off somewhere else, and then they pop up randomly to give you missions, and you kind of like, as you see the story go, you really see like, but I think like you really see how it's really cool how they use the corn being the reason of why this journey, this adventure is actually linear. So they explain the linearity of the story because of, you know, what they're doing and, you know, the whole plot behind this situation that's going on. And I find that, the story itself is very clever when you think about it. Like, it is very whimsical, and that is really, really up my alley. I thought it was pretty funny for the most part. There were some jokes that got lost in the mix, obviously, because humor is hard to hit all the time, all the right notes. But overall, I think, like, other than even the cornstalk, you got the Ruby Queen, and you got, like, this this crazy corn called, it's like this crazy white corn called cornucopia, who's just hilarious because he bursts into rooms and does stupid things and then says some random garbage and then he'll leave.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly interesting characters throughout the game. We obviously, as we mentioned earlier, we've got these constant post-it notes, which essentially, if you read them all, and there are numerous post-it notes, I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of these bloody post-it notes, and the fact you have to line it up to click each one, and you basically are charting the dissolution of this working relationship between these two scientists, Bob and Ted. One's basically a slob, and the other's just mean. And they just spend all their time insulting each other through post-it notes they leave for each other. And it would seem that with their government grant that basically they created Sentient Corner and then just blew the budget on buying stuff, and we have these arguments about turning the facility into a tourist destination despite the fact it's supposed to be a secret facility. And you can tell the game is constantly trying to introduce new elements. I mean, there's a crane game at one point.
The DDR section.
The finale is a rhythm.
The DDR section, the Dance Dance Revolution section.
Yeah, I mean, it tries these different ideas. Some work, some don't. The same as the humor, really. The fact that we have security gates that the only way to get past them is to essentially build a representation of one of these workers, and that includes scrolling a face on an Etch-a-Sketch. And these creations look awful. But somehow the security gates always seem to let you through, even though they look nothing like anyone.
But that's what's really funny is, when you see these things and then, everything I think what makes this game, where I kind of think it's very, very clever, maybe not up to the point of brilliant, but very clever, is in the sense that they make Vladdy voice what's in your head, because obviously, like you said, our character doesn't talk. So, when you're having these characters that you build in front of the door, Vladdy's like, oh, come on, that's not gonna work, and then it works, and then he's like, and then he calls like, oh, stupid American idiots and stuff, and then he starts like, just insulting everything all over again. And it is true, that we do pick up a ton of garbage and stuff like that. But I think, I think that's where the value of the game is, right? Because this isn't a long game, and it's not like particularly like, I don't think it's like, I don't know how much the price is, because we did receive this game through a PR. So, okay, so the game is about like $20 on Steam. So I'm guessing it's about that same price on PlayStation and Xbox as well. So it's and it's only about if you don't get stuck and things flow really smoothly. I did it all in one sitting, so it was like a 3.5-4 hour experience, which is pretty pricey for that experience. So I mean, you think about it, I think it's all into the value of the game is in how much you enjoy this sort of style of game. And in like, we have to collect, we also have the options to collect these folio items, which are, you pick a ton of like random rocks with different identities that you piece onto it, and then you have like pick up all these documents, and these are all adding layers to the story. So if you really, really wanted to learn more, and that's where the value is. There's like 75 folio items sprawled throughout the map as it expands, and you have to complete these missions till the end. Whether it's worth it, I can't, while I did like the game, I can't say $22 feels very justified.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I couldn't see myself returning to this game once I'd actually beaten it. It's not the most gratifying of experiences. It's you play through it because you want to see how it ends. And even when we do get to the end, the ending is kind of like...
But it's supposed to be... I think It's interesting because the ending was the reason. Because for those viewers who don't know, I randomly will have these games where I play till the end, and then I force Elwood to play till the end as well before he forms any opinion on it, to be open minded and head to the end. And this was one of those games which I finished, and I was like, we're gonna keep the spoiler free, so we're not gonna talk about it, but. It's like I kind of asked him, I was like, play till the end and tell me what it is. Plus, it's like a 4 hour game, so it's not really like a crazy, crazy long game. Um, However, the same situation also happened for Little Nightmares. I feel like this sort of stuff is very similar now, very typical now, where we're getting games which are like 4 hours and they're like $20 to $25. And I wonder, for Little Nightmares, I thought it was worth it.
Yeah, I mean, Little Nightmares had its own puzzle of an ending, but the difference obviously with Little Nightmares is that there was some great joy in actually piecing it all together, what it all meant. With Maize, however, it feels that the ending comes and that the developers seem to be under the impression that it's funny, but it actually isn't funny. It's kind of like, I was kind of like left with a feeling of, oh, is that it? That was the thing. I mean, yes, it's great to finally have a use for certain items that we carry around from like the very start of the game. But yeah, it was sort of like, it just felt like you really didn't know how to end your game, and this is where you went with it. So I was kind of very disappointed by the ending, but yeah, it's one of those games that I play through once, and I'd feel no need to return to it again. There's nothing really that I feel that's going to be missed there. I mean, obviously you could do the speed run and try and get it done in an hour and a half as one of the achievements. You can obviously try and find, as you mentioned already, the 74 folio items, which were obviously just the two achievement points I didn't get. I mean, this was almost a perfect run for myself on one go.
Yeah.
I think I was missing like 2 items or something stupid like that. But yeah, as I said, I played it, and while it was certainly an okay experience, it's certainly not one that I'm in a rush to go back and replay.
So, what would be your rating of Maze?
For my rating for Maize, I'm going to give this 3 out of 5. The reason I'm going for the 3 really is just for certain characters like Vladdy, who really saved this game. The more time Vladdy was on the screen, certainly when we have sequences of Vladdy trying to drive a tractor, that kept me more amused than just the aimless wandering around. The shift in tone, though, from being what could have been a very haunting and disturbing horror game to just a bizarre comedy, is a bit of a jarring sort of shift, which I did find a little off-putting. The same way that a lot of the humor requires on you taking time to read hundreds of post-it notes and piece it all together. It would have been nice to have some more sort of this sort of humor thrown into the cutscenes, which often were really funny, and it just, as I said, it just felt that there was a number of flaws which stopped me obviously liking this more. But yeah, I would say this is a 3 out of 5. I think you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. I think you're going to fall one way or another with this game, certainly.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going a little higher, mostly because I had a little bit more enjoyment. I'm gonna give it a 3.5. Because of a few reasons. Mostly because, like, for me, this is kind of more up my alley. I really like the whimsical feeling the characters had. I enjoyed the humor a lot. I actually really enjoyed reading the post-it notes. I thought Bob and Ten were immensely and idiotically fun to read. And I thought that actually added an extra layer to the story. So for me, that part worked. The only thing I felt was that I wasn't too happy about the fact that it was so, the puzzles were so easy, and they were so, like, I know that, we complain about things being really hard and that some of them are too hard, but this one was really, really simple. And they even, like, they kind of, like, even, like, I get it that you outline objects that, you need to pick up. That's okay. In a world of huge amount of things, that's okay. But I didn't like the fact that, they had outlines for every item that you need to place into what area, That would have been part of the mystery to figure out what it is. And it might have given this game a little bit more of a point and click adventure feeling. So, I mean, I like part of it, but I definitely liked it more than you did, Elwood. But I'm at a 3.5 right now. And this wraps up this episode. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. Head over to our home base, thatmomentin.com, to read gaming reviews, to get gaming news every single day. Follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook at GameWarp Podcast. You can check out our gaming obsessions over on Instagram at instagram.com/GameWarp Podcast, or hang out with us on our Twitch channel where we stream at GameWarp Podcast. Till next time, bye!